tonight, the search for answers over why a soldier on a Georgia military base shot 5 of his co-workers. The new details coming into us in just the last hour about the suspect, an active duty sergeant who brought his own gun to the base, the soldiers who subdued him, and the live stream from the lockdown. That's coming up next. Plus, a high-level meeting at the VP's home appears set for later tonight with Jeffrey Epstein and that case on the agenda. We've got the latest reporting from the White House. Plus, the American journalist we told you about last night, lost in the Norwegian wilderness for 4 days, found alive. The story of that incredible rescue coming up. And a sentence you don't hear every day. What happened when a group of NHL players got up close and personal with a grizzly bear? Then why the NFL is turning up its nose at smelling salts and why that is such a big deal. That's coming up just a little bit later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and as we are coming on the air tonight, we're just learning more about the shooting that left 5 soldiers hurt at Fort Stewart Army Base in Georgia, with military officials saying that the alleged shooter, the suspected attacker here, is in the Army. Listen.
The shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his co-workers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly.
You can imagine that this active shooting that unfolded earlier this morning sent the entire base into lockdown. You're looking here at one soldier who live streamed from the lockdown on TikTok. We're going to play a little piece of it here.
There's going to line saying one is barricaded the building. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. I cannot confirm nor deny. I'm just telling you guys what I know, what's been told to me.
Here's what we know. The suspect, who's believed to be 28 years old, Cornelius Radford, is a sergeant. He's never been deployed in combat and used his personal handgun, allegedly, in today's shooting. He was arrested for a DUI back in May. The Army has not released the names of the 5 victims, but say they are all in stable condition. We've got this covered from every angle tonight, including at the Pentagon with our Courtney Kuby. But I want to start with Jesse Kirsch, who's been following this story since it broke, since we heard about the active shooting several hours ago. Jesse, bring us up to speed, because this update from officials in just the last little bit gave us some critical new information.
Yeah, several pieces of new information, Hallie. First off, all 5 of the soldiers who were allegedly shot by someone described as a co-worker are expected to survive. They are all in stable condition. 3 of them required surgery. 2 of them needed treatment at a hospital in Savannah, Georgia. That's about 40 miles away, about an hour's drive for you or I, but certainly would be faster, you would imagine, in a military vehicle or in an ambulance. So we would expect they would have gotten there sooner. But again, more than 40 miles that they felt they needed to take 2 of those soldiers for treatment. As of a couple hours ago now, authorities are saying, or almost a couple of hours ago now, authorities saying there is no threat now to the local community. At one point, though, there were lockdowns in schools more than 25 miles away. That just speaks to the ripple effect this had throughout the broader community. And to your point about this allegedly being carried out potentially with a personal handgun, the general who spoke from the Army base earlier said this is something they need to look into, because this is a secured military facility. They have armed guards, and yet somehow someone was able to get potentially a personal weapon in. That is what is alleged as possibly having happened by authorities. Again, it seems like they are still figuring out for sure if that is the case when it comes to this. As for how this all unfolded, the general says that this sergeant was at his place of work, and this is someone who has been in the Army since 2018, according to military officials, and the general describing how this all unfolded with the sergeant's own co-workers intervening. Here is part of what the general said.
His soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldier, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
And again, all 5 of the soldiers who have allegedly been shot by a coworker are expected to survive. And one other thing to note here, Hallie, the general mentioned that the suspect may also have recently had a DUI and that his superiors were unaware of that until all of this unfolded. I'm sure Courtney could elaborate more on procedures that may have been skipped there as well. And we are told that the suspect is in custody and has been interviewed by investigators. Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch, thank you very much for that. Let me bring in now our senior national security correspondent, Courtney Kuby, who's joining us. Okay, Court, one of the things that you and I talked about during our special coverage when this first started to unfold is protocol for bringing your personal gun onto base. Talk us through that. What are the reporting requirements for a DUI, for example? What would you typically see happen on an Army base?
So here's one of the loopholes about bringing any kind of weapon on a military base. If you have access to the base, let's say you have what would be known as a common access card that gives you access to get on that base, your vehicle is most likely not going to be checked when you're coming on and off the base. They wave you through, then maybe they scan your card, and then you're on. You are not allowed, a service member, a civilian, a contractor, whomever, would not be allowed to bring either their military-issued weapon or their personal weapons on base unless it was for a specific task. For instance, if you were a military police officer and you had your service pistol or whatever it is. Now, members of the military, members of the Army would most likely have been issued some sort of a service weapon, but when they check into the base, there would be procedures for what they have to do. Usually it's you check it into an armory or something there when you need it for training or whatever it is. You can go and pick it back up again. But it's just one of those simple security loopholes that occurs in that if you have an access card to a base, it's possible you could sneak one on undetected. That's one of the pieces here. A couple of the other things that I was really struck by that we've learned just since we last spoke, Hallie. Number one, the manner in which this sergeant was taken down. It turns out that his fellow soldiers actually actually tackled him down to the ground and held on to him until law enforcement were able to come and apprehend him and take him into custody. That was a fascinating detail. Also, the fact that he was assigned to a sustainment unit as part of the two ABCT, that's the Brigade Combat Team on base there, assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division. Sustainment is basically logistics. He did support for this unit. But the general said that these were his fellow soldiers, the men and women who he was probably working with day in and day out, who ended up being the victims of this attack. Two very critical issues. Another thing on the DUI that Jesse mentioned, yes, it appears he did not report that up. It occurred off base, and he didn't report it up to his chain of command, as should be standard practice here. But the general also pointed out that at this point, they're not aware of any other behavioral or issues that he has had or disciplinary issues that he's had since he's been in the Army since January 2018, but that seems to still be something that they're looking into, Hallie.
The other piece of this, too, Courtney, that is interesting here, the investigation, what any potential trial could look like, the idea that there was a live stream that was out there while this lockdown was happening from somebody who was on the base, potentially a critical piece of evidence for investigators, right?
Absolutely, and really a sign of the times, right, Hallie? Yeah. I mean, you're on a base, you know, I'm sure that there are a lot of facilities there on that base, as there are here in the Pentagon, where you can't have a cell phone, but, you know, if you're in the overall larger BCT complex there, you can have your phone at a lot of those locations.
Courtney Kube live for us at the Pentagon. Court, thank you very much for your reporting. I know you will keep us posted. I appreciate that. Let's take over to the White House, because we are just maybe a couple of hours away or so from Vice President Vance set to host some top Trump administration officials to talk about, among other things, the Jeffrey Epstein case, to talk about whether to release a transcript, for example, of the Justice Department's 2 days of sit-downs with the woman you just saw, Epstein's convicted accomplice and former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Again, Epstein, one of several items on the agenda, with the White House Chief of Staff, top DOJ officials invited to attend, according to a source familiar with that meeting. Remember, Maxwell met with the Justice Department's number 2, Todd Blanche, for some 9 hours a couple weeks ago. We reported overnight the Trump administration is considering releasing material from those conversations. It was only a week after her talks with Blanche that Maxwell was moved to a minimum security prison. It's typically meant for, nonviolent, white-collar criminals. Maxwell's serving 20 years for sex trafficking. A senior law enforcement official has told us the prison had to boost security because of Maxwell's transfer. Tonight's meeting being met with backlash now from the family of Epstein's most prominent accuser, Virginia Giuffre. You see her there. She died by suicide back in April. Her family says somebody affiliated with Giuffre or other survivors should be included in this meeting, and that Epstein and Maxwell's victims should be consulted before any new materials are released. NBC's Monica Alba is following this for us. Worth noting, too, that the family of Virginia Giuffre has told us here at NBC she, until the very end of her life, wanted to see these files and more information about this case released. So talk to us about this meeting tonight. Do we know anything else about it? Would it be unusual for a gathering of the, quote-unquote, brain trust for President Trump to get together in a setting like this for a conversation like this?
Well, we know, Hallie, that the vice president does like to host various administration officials, lawmakers at his residence at the Naval Observatory. That in and of itself wouldn't be out of the ordinary. That's something that does take place. But the reason that this planned meeting is raising some eyebrows is because of the players who were expected to be a part of it, at least earlier today. There are now some questions about whether this will still take place. But according to our reporting, we know that at least the vice president, the White House chief of staff, Susie Wiles, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, were invited to be a part of this conversation and gathering that we are told is not just about the Jeffrey Epstein situation, but that's something you could expect to come up when you have a group like the one that we just showed you on your screen come together and have this kind of conversation. Now, the White House is dismissing the idea that that is why they are being brought together, but they're not denying outright that there is this event that's supposed to take place later this evening. But it does come, Hallie, as the administration is trying to make this decision specifically related to those transcripts that you were talking about. And a source familiar with that says that the administration is leaning toward the idea of transparency, but it's just unclear whether they will be able to do that in the coming days, or will it take a little bit longer? And there's a question about whether it would be the entire transcript of that conversation, which is 9 hours over the course of 2 days, or would it be a portion? And then could that invite some other questions about what was or wasn't released? And certainly there are questions about what would be redacted, which is, of course, some of the concern that the victims and the victims' families are expressing today as well.
And Monica, to this point, this is a story that touches every facility, every building in Washington, pretty much. The White House, the Justice Department, the Capitol, of course, with members of Congress who say they want, Republicans specifically, the president's own party, who say that they want to see more. They want the Justice Department to hand over more of these files or information about the Epstein case. That is echoed now by some of the victims. You mentioned some of the accusers of Epstein and Maxwell, who obviously privacy concerns are there, but who also want to see more out there.
Yes, several of them are speaking out to say that they would be in support of getting all of these related files out there and in the open and in the public. But they're also saying that they want to be included. They are saying specifically in the case of Virginia Giuffre and her family that there should be victims invited to a meeting that would include the vice president and top Justice Department officials to have their perspective included as well. And here's a little more of what we heard from a separate victim talking about this and what they would like to see happen with this.
I believe, yes, the files should be released. I'm tired of the government saying that they want to release them. So please just do it.
Beyond that, some of the victims and their families are also saying, Hallie, that they would like for Congress to invite them to come and testify, not just other officials and not just to have Ghislaine Maxwell potentially do that, even though that's up in the air. But they're saying they would like to have their voices heard on this as well if they are seeking out more information in this controversy.
Monica Alba, much to follow. I should note, Monica, too, we are waiting to hear from the president. He's got an event separate from all of this, but an event related to Apple. It's possible, right, Monica? He may take questions on that if we still have you.
It is possible. This is a venue where the president often does take questions, so we will see.
Okay, you're staying close to your camera, I think, so thank you for that. We are staying close to what's happening at the White House. Again, that event has not just begun yet, but there is certainly plenty for the president to be pressed about, including the new information into us in just the last hour that the president may meet with the man you see here, Russian President Vladimir Putin, as early as next week to talk ceasefire in the war with Ukraine. But there's a catch, according to a White House official. And that's that Putin also has to agree with Ukraine's leader to meet with Ukraine's leader as well. It's coming just hours after a top Trump advisor met with Putin himself. You see Steve Witkoff here shaking hands with Putin just a couple days ahead of the president's self-imposed deadline for a deal. The president posting online that Witkoff's meeting was highly productive, saying great progress was made. There's a question mark on what that progress looks like. We'll get to that. But we should note it's happening as Russia is really ramping up its summer offensive. Ukrainian officials say 2 people were killed, dozens more hurt. You're seeing the aftermath here by a Russian strike on the southeastern part of the country. Keir Simmons is joining us now. Listen, any meeting between President Trump, an American president, and a Russian president is obviously huge news here. And if this comes to fruition, that is still a big if, it would certainly be notable. There are, as we pointed out, a couple of caveats to this, though, right?
There sure are. You're right. I mean, it would be big news, even bigger news, right, if it was President Putin and President Trump and President Zelensky, the kind of news that President Trump would like to make. The real question, as you rightly said out there, is whether, in fact, the Kremlin wants to agree to something like that. That meeting between President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and President Putin lasted 3 hours. Putin was sitting there with two senior advisors, both of whom are long in the game of diplomacy and know the United States very, very well. They knew that the deadline, President Trump's deadline, was coming on Friday, and that they needed to do something. And it sounds as if, according to the White House officials who've been talking to NBC News, as if what they did was they proposed this meeting. President Trump, as you rightly say, says, I'm interested in that, but you have to meet with President Zelensky as well. And that's where we stand right now. No time, no place, no real details beyond the idea that it might happen.
You've also got the White House, the Trump administration, using carrots and sticks to try to get some action here. And on the stick part of that category, on the stick front, doubling tariffs on India, right, because they're importing Russian oil. This is part of the pressure campaign that the White House has been putting on those internationally to try to get to some sort of resolution on this invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, and Hallie, we always talk about, geopolitics is complex and three-dimensional, and this is an example of where it is. Because listen to this. At the same time, the Indian government today cancelled an order of military equipment from the United States. Remember that the United States has been cozying up to India, if you like, not least because of its adversarial, or at least somewhat adversarial relationship, often adversarial relationship with China. So there are moving parts here, and a 50% tariff on India, that's a big deal. That's going to cause Prime Minister Modi of India a real problem. But there are no indications that India is shifting. Other experts say that one of the issues is if India stops buying cheap oil, the oil price will go up. That, of course, would mean more money for Russia. So these are complex challenges. It's clear, though, that, and we can say that President Trump is trying to do anything he can to put pressure on the Kremlin to get President Putin to agree to a ceasefire. Even though President Putin has suggested a meeting, there are still no signs that he's interested in quickly signing up for that deal.
Keir Simmons, live for us overseas tonight. Keir, thank you very much for that. Back here at home, you've got new evacuation orders in California for what's become the state's biggest wildfire this year, all as hundreds of other wildfires rage on, some of them burning out of control, some of them hurting people, including 4 people near Santa Barbara because of what you're looking at here, the Gifford fire. It's huge, 83,000 acres. It's threatening hundreds of buildings. To put it into perspective, the Palisades fire earlier this year was about 23,000 acres. Of course, that was in a far more densely populated area. You had a ton of homes close together in that one. Up north, there's more than 750 fires taking over 2 provinces in Canada. The Grand Canyon fire is still burning, etc. All of it leaving dangerous air quality in as many as 10 states tonight. Look at Colorado. We've been showing you images like these. It's smoky. It's hazy. That stuff is not good for you to be breathing right now. Let me bring in NBC's Morgan Chesky, who's joining us now live from L.A. Not ideal to have these air quality alerts continuing yet another day, and the temperatures aren't really providing some relief either.
Yeah, Hallie, those temperatures are such a critical part here because we have this high heat, which, of course, is not new for this time of year, but it's being combined with low humidity. And you don't need to be a meteorologist to know that that can create a condition that experts are calling just ripe to burn, not just here in Southern California, but across vast portions of the western United States. And as you mentioned, up into Canada, all told, more than 700 active fires are burning as we speak. We've acknowledged that the air quality was impacted yesterday. But real quickly, I want to show you just kind of glimpses of some of these significant fires that continue to burn at this hour, really in conditions that are not offering fire crews any help. And let's start with the Bear Gulch fire, Hallie. This is in Mason County, Washington. And it's sad to say this is one of the smaller fires we're looking at right now, and it's already burned more than 5,000 acres. Of course, then back here in California, we have the Gifford fire. That is in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. Hallie, more than 83,000 acres have burned. Hundreds of people have evacuated. We're waiting to hear from officials on how many structures have burned. To your point, this is not in a highly residential area, but people are being impacted none the least. And then we have the Dragon Bravo fire happening over there by the Grand Canyon. That's now surpassed 130,000 acres. The Monroe Canyon fire in Utah burning more than 65,000 acres there as crews desperately try to contain it. And then closest to home here, Hallie, we have what's being called the Rosa fire. That's in neighboring Riverside County. That's burned already more than 1,500 acres. I could get in my car right now and be at that fire in less than an hour. And so that is certainly something that a lot of people are cognizant of at this hour. And I think another important note here, Hallie, is that the Giffords fire, the biggest fire in California right now, it started from 4 smaller fires that essentially burned into one larger complex. That is a significant concern here. When you do have one spot fire here, fire crews know how quickly another one can pop up, and it can become an entirely different undertaking here. Hallie.
Morgan Chesky, plenty to watch from your vantage point there in Southern California. Thank you. Also tonight, you've got stores, you've got manufacturers right now racing to load stuff onto ships and planes because sweeping tariffs, those punishing tariffs on more than 60 countries. Gang, it's like 6+ hours from now. We've been talking about this deadline, right? It is here. This is when those tariffs actually go into effect. You see it here, some as high as 50% on dozens of countries. And it comes as you've got companies like Apple making moves to avoid some of those tariff threats. You're taking a live look here at President Trump at the White House as we speak. He's alongside CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, announcing now an extra $100 billion investment from the company aimed at boosting Apple's production here in the United States. You see the president, his team there as well. It's all part of a push from the White House to try to get more of the supply chain for tech companies back here to the U.S. Remember, this is something that the president has talked about, that he hopes tariffs will do. Bring manufacturing back to the United States. Of course, we've talked about how experts say this is essentially something that you end up paying for. Let me bring in Christine Romans, who's joining us now. Here we go, 12:01. So like tonight, like technically Thursday morning, but really tonight, the numbers tick up. So from a consumer perspective, how concerned should we be? What should we be thinking about for the economy more macro? Walk us through it.
I mean, Tariff Palooza is here. It's been 6 months.
Is that what the economists are calling it now?
That's what, yeah, it is a technical term. No, Tariff Palooza is here. And we've been hearing for months, people might be at home saying, well, wait, I thought the tariffs were already on.
That's right. What happened to Liberation Day? April.
They've been threatened and paused and negotiated and threatened and paused and negotiated. This is now the time when these higher prices are going to start to come to bear. And until now, a lot of companies have been absorbing the higher costs as much as they can because the American consumer is exhausted by inflation, doesn't want to pay higher prices. So they've been absorbing as long as they can, but they're not expected to go on forever. And I think you're going to start to see things like bananas and olive oil and frozen, frozen salmon patties and things like this that are suddenly going to have a 20%, 15%, 30% price tag. And eventually that'll start working through to your grocery bill and to your own family budget.
At what point, if any, does this become a political liability potentially for President Trump?
I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons why you heard him musing on Friday. You've heard Josh Hallie has written some legislation about maybe having a check, another like a COVID-style check, but a tariff rebate check going back to consumers. I think that's a tacit acknowledgement that this could hit family budgets. But remember, the DOGE check, the DOGE savings check, that never materialized.
That's right.
So we'll see what happens next.
What is one thing that you feel like we're not talking about enough when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to tonight's deadline, and as we look ahead to the weeks to come?
I feel like it's the calm before the storm, really.
You feel like right now is the calm before the storm?
I feel like it's the calm before the storm. Well, I feel like a lot of these tariffs just simply haven't gone into effect. They've been threatened so much. You're now talking about the largest tariffs since the 1930s. Last year at this time, the effective tariff rate was a little over 2%. Now it's 18% and rising. I do think this is what I think is fascinating. The worst forecasts didn't come to fruition, right? And the biggest sort of, claims from the president and his team also haven't come to fruition. All this money coming in and not having to pay income taxes anymore because there's so much money coming in from tariffs. So both extremes of the kind of the argument didn't materialize. But I do think as time goes on, it will be the consumer class that will have the biggest change in their daily life because of the new trade rules.
It does feel like the question is, what is that timing? If it's not back to school shopping season, is it holiday shopping season? Is it next spring? You know what I mean? Like, when does that actually begin to pinch people?
I mean, we thought that you'd start to first see signs of it back to school, and that is happening. And that's why so many people have been doing back to school shopping early. But I think by the holidays, I talk to business owners who are stocking now for the holidays. They're stocking fewer things, different things. They're scrambling to find different items. So it's all anew. The president is rewriting the global trade rules. That will definitely be felt for sure.
Christine Romans, it's always great to see you. I love seeing you here in New York. So appreciate you, Christine. Thank you. Let's talk about what's going down in Texas and back home in Washington, because Texas Democrats tonight say they are not backing down after they had to be evacuated from their hotel in Chicago this morning because of a bomb threat. Fortunately, everybody's okay. There's an all clear there. But it speaks to the stakes of the moment here. Remember, dozens of Democrats left Texas in protest. They're trying to deny Republicans the ability to take a vote on redrawn congressional maps to get the GOP more seats in Congress, like in big Congress, in Washington Congress, the Congress that represents you no matter where you live. So because these Democrats aren't physically there, the Texas State House can't move forward with a vote. This is the whole quorum thing, right? So they're stuck. Stalemate, stall, pick your word, whatever. That's what it is. Thing is, Republicans are not backing down either, right? They are now, too, potentially expanding their push to try to redraw more maps in other states, like maybe Indiana. Vice President Vance, you see him there. He is headed to Indiana tomorrow to talk with the governor about this and other things as well. Let's get to Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill. And Ryan, you and I have talked about the nationalization of what's being called the redistricting arms race, if you will. On the Democratic side, in a state like California, you're seeing it on the Republican side now in a state like Indiana. What is the sense from the folks in Congress, including leadership that you talk to, about how this escalates?
Yeah, I think there is a real concern that what's happening in Texas is not going to be the end of this. It could just be the beginning of this phase of redistricting. But that really hasn't stopped anyone from moving forward. In fact, in many ways, it's added a fan to the flame. It's made both Republicans and Democrats kind of gear up for what is going to be and ultimately could be a long-term redistricting fight that could play out in places like California, in New York, in Indiana, Florida, and beyond, as Republicans and Democrats try and put themselves in the best position to win the 2026 midterms. And what we're seeing play out in Texas is that they are not backing down. Texas is the first stage of this domino, as we called it, on the map there. And if they were to back away, then that would stop all of this process. But they're doing the exact opposite. The state's governor, Greg Abbott, has filed a lawsuit to remove one of the Democratic leaders from their positions. John Cornyn, the Republican senator from Texas, is calling on the FBI to help aid in the arrest of some of these Democratic lawmakers that have fled the state. Meanwhile, those Democratic lawmakers, despite that bomb threat that you talked about, Hallie, have shown no signs of backing down. Listen to how they're talking about the situation today.
When people use the dog whistles, like hunt them down, there are people that are willing to do that. We will not be deterred. We will continue forward, and we're going to march on to every American home to make sure they understand this is not about bomb threats. This is not just about redistricting. This is about how far people will go to keep us from having quality health care and jobs and all the things that you require, the things that you worry about at home, for God's sake.
And so the question is, how long does this process play itself out? At some point, there has to be some sort of a resolution here. Democrats are hoping that they can extend this out as long as possible to draw public opinion in their direction and put pressure on Republicans to back down. Republicans, on the other hand, are willing to take this as long as they possibly can, and believe that Democrats can't stay out of the state forever. Ultimately, though, there needs to be some sort of resolution to this in the future. The question is, which direction does it go, and then does it lead to much bigger problems down the road? Hallie.
Ryan Nobles, live on Capitol Hill. Ryan, thank you very much. Much more to get to ahead. We are keeping an eye on what's going down at the White House right now. You see that live look here. This is the Oval Office. Tim Cook speaking now, but there's President Trump. We're watching to see if he takes questions from reporters on a variety of topics that are making headlines today, including the Jeffrey Epstein case, including a potential meeting with Vladimir Putin. Plus, we've got details on a dramatic rescue effort on top of a California building. But first, found alive and safe, what the family of a missing American journalist is telling us tonight. Back home in Washington, the Capitol is basically emptied out, with members home in their districts for the August recess. That means that many of them are getting an earful from constituents. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to take you back to the White House because in the last 10 seconds, the president has begun taking questions from reporters. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much. It changes our country. I mean, our country is a very different country than it was 6 months ago. And people like Tim are coming. We had Micron in yesterday. We had all of the big, great companies that you read about, you don't know about, but you read about. Many of them were making products outside of our country. Foolishly, we lost them. If we had the right person sitting in that seat, that would have never happened 20 and 30 years ago. When you look at the chip business, it would have never left our shores. We had 100% of chips originally, and then we slowly got taken down to nothing. We have the biggest chip companies, to both of them, but we have the biggest in the world coming in. They're going to Arizona and beyond. And we're going to have, in a short period of time, we'll be up to almost 50% of the chips from starting in nothing. And that's something. But we have the greatest companies in the world coming into our country. And that means jobs, and it means wealth. And wealth means security for our people. Okay? Brian?
Yes, sir. Congratulations on this investment, President Trump. And
thank you.
Great example of putting America first. What does the labor force look like to fill these jobs that you have? Do we have enough skilled American workers to fill these?
Well, we do have a lot of workers, and we have a lot of workers that hadn't been looking for work because they were disincentivized, frankly. And people like Tim have tremendous schools and training centers that they build along with a lot of their big plants where they train people on whether it's glass, like in Kentucky, or computers, or whatever they might be doing. It's a complex world, and they train people, and they do a great job. So it's a whole new workforce. Now, we have a lot of them in energy because, you know, they've always liked energy. As you know, coal has opened up big. We brought it back. And brought it back in a very large way. You know, China is right now building 58 coal-fired plants, 58 big ones. And here we were saying we don't take coal. We have more coal than anybody else in the world. We have more oil and gas than anybody else in the world. But we have tremendous energy jobs. And the energy, as you know, we're booming with energy. And that's why the gasoline prices are down. Costs are down. I just hope when they watch these shows, I watch this, I won't use names because I just make them better known that nobody knows who they are. But I watched this group of people on CNN and MSDNC, too, the same thing, where they say, well, costs have gone up. Costs haven't gone up. They've gone down. I'm telling you, the thing that's gone up is stock prices and success of our country. Our country is really, really doing well, successful. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. President, have Putin and Zelensky agreed to a summit yet? And where and when would that be?
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
How close do you think you are to a deal?
Excuse me?
How close do you think you are to some kind of deal?
Well, I don't want to say. I've been disappointed before with this one. You know, we've solved 5 wars, plus add to that Iran, where we wiped out their nuclear capacity for weapons. They would have had a weapon within 2 months, maybe less, and that was totally obliterated. It turned out it was a total obliteration, and the pilots and the people that did that job are really, we have the greatest armed forces in the world, but that was really something. In fact, there's a model of the plane right there. So, you got to bring that up, Susie. We have to see that. Look at this. This was just given to me. You know, we ordered brand new B-2 bombers. This is a plane that over a period of 36 hours of constant flying. Look at this. So this is the brand new one they just ordered. Similar, but actually quite different. It's new and enhanced. It's an amazing machine. It went 36 hours. We had 52 tankers up in the air loading up our planes because this was surrounded by F-22s and F-35s, and it was flawless, Tim. Even you would say it was flawless. And every one of those bombs hit their target. And then we had Tomahawks shot in from a submarine 300 miles away, and they hit every single Tomahawk hit its target. It was amazing. And that was a big threat. That was a nuclear threat. And here's the new one that we just ordered a large number of them. I'll put it
Mr. President, what was the breakthrough today? Did Vladimir Putin make some kind of concession that he hasn't been willing to make before?
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. There are thousands of young people dying, mostly soldiers, but also, missiles being hit into Kiev and other places. But in terms of soldiers, I think Russia's lost over 20,000 since the beginning of the year. 20,000. And I guess the estimate for Ukraine is about 9,000. It's a terrible situation. We want to get it stopped. We don't have American soldiers there, but I feel I have an obligation to get it stopped. This was not my war. This war would have never started, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years. It went 4 years and didn't start. But this is Biden's war. This was on his watch. And, it's funny. We had no land was taken from Trump. It was taken from Bush. It was taken from Biden. The whole thing they would take from Biden if it weren't for us. But it was taken by Obama. Take a look at what was taken with all of the land that was taken. Nothing was taken by Russia from us. Not 1 ounce of land was taken. I'm here to get the thing over with. It would have never started if I were president, and we're here to get it stopped and get the death stopped. Yeah, please.
President, in the past, you said you would know if Putin was passing you along. What gives you any confidence that he is or isn't doing that this time around?
Can't answer the question yet. I'll tell you in a matter of weeks, maybe less. But we've made a lot of progress. And as you know, we put a 50% tariff on India on oil. They're the second largest. They're very close to China in terms of the purchase of oil from Russia. But so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But we've had very productive talks today. Yes, ma'am.
President Trump, on federalizing D.C., are you considering taking over the D.C. police? Is that an option on the table?
We're considering it, yeah, because the crime is ridiculous. I could show you a chart comparing D.C. to other locations, and you're not going to want to see what it looks like. It was just up on television, actually. They were showing it. Now, we want to have a great, safe capital, and we're going to have it. And that includes cleanliness and it includes other things. We have a capital that's very unsafe. We just almost lost a young man, beautiful, handsome guy that got the hell knocked out of him the night before last. And I'm going to call him now. We wanted to give him a little recovery time. We just put a call into him. They're calling back in a little while, but he went through a bad situation, to put it mildly, and there's too much of it. We're gonna do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes the graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it. And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too.
And do you want Congress to look at overturning the D.C. Home Rule Act?
We're going to look at that. In fact, the lawyers are already studying it. We have to run D.C. This has to be the best-run place in the country, not the worst-run place in the country. And it has so much potential. And we're going to take care of it. You're going to be safe. You're going to be safe walking down streets. You're not going to get mugged.
Mr. President, if you do reach a deal with Ukraine and Russia, would you drop the additional tariffs on India?
Well, we'll determine that later. But right now they're paying a 50% tariff. Okay.
One for Mr. Cook as well.
Yeah, please. Sure.
The president wants a made-in-the-USA iPhone. What are the chances that you can actually make that happen?
Well, if you look at the bulk of it, we're doing a lot of the semiconductors here. We're doing the glass here. We're doing the Face ID module here. And so there's a ton of it. And we're doing these for products sold elsewhere in the world. And so there's a lot of content in there from the United States.
But what about the whole thing?
We're very proud of it.
Can you make the whole thing
is just the final assembly that you're focused on. And that will be elsewhere for a while.
He makes many of the components here, and we've been talking about it, and the whole thing is set up at other places, and it's been there for a long time. So in terms of cost and all, but I think we may incentivize him enough that one day he'll be bringing that. But he brings most of the stuff. Look, he's not making this kind of an investment anywhere in the world, not even close. He's coming back. I mean, Apple's coming back to America. Thank you.
Mr. President, Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance,
It's
buys
okay.
more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours. So let's see what happens over the next.
Sanctions.
You're going to see a lot more.
So this is a taste of
You're
what's
going to see a lot more. You're going to see
President,
so much secondary sanctions. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. You were the driving force behind Operation Warp Speed, these mRNA vaccines that are the gold standard.
Right.
Now your health secretary is pulling back all the funding for research. He's saying that the risks outweigh the benefits, which puts him at odds with
Research
the
on
entire
what?
medical community and with you. What is going on?
Research on what?
Into mRNA vaccines.
Well, we're going to look at that. We're talking about it, and they're doing a very good job. And, you know, that is a past. With Operation Warp Speed was, whether you're Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. The efficiency, the way it was done, the distribution, everything about it has been amazing. But, you know, that was now a long time ago. And we're on to other things. But we are speaking about it. We have meetings about it tomorrow, actually, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and we'll determine. We're looking for other answers to other problems, to other sicknesses and diseases. And I think we're doing really well. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said many times that you want to stop wars in the Middle East. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is contemplating reoccupying Gaza entirely. Is he defying you, sir, or are you giving him a green light?
Well, we have stopped wars in the Middle East by stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon, and they're you know, they can say they're going to start all over again, but that's a very dangerous thing for them to do, because we'll be back. As soon as they start, we'll be back. And I think they understand that. They're just words. But no, we've stopped a lot of wars in the Middle East. If you think about what we did with Iran, Iran was the perpetrator of hate, a very evil place, and I think it's going to be a lot different in the coming years.
On the India penalties, do you have any similar plans to enact more tariffs on China as it relates to their purchases?
Could happen. Depends on how we do. Could happen. Brian?
I've got an entertainment-based question for you. A few weeks ago, Stephen Colbert announced that he was leaving his show. Howard Stern announced that him and Sirius XM Radio are parting ways. Do you think the hate Trump business model that's been in the entertainment business is going out of business because it's not popular with the American people?
Well, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked really for a long time, and I would say pretty much from the beginning. Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go outside in the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent. Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they get, you know, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that. Howard Stern, it's a name I haven't heard. I used to do a show. We used to have fun. But I haven't heard that name in a long time. What happened? He got terminated?
Yeah, they're going to separate ways because I think what they're offering salary-wise is real low than what he's getting.
You know when he went down?
Whenever you want.
You know when he went down? No, before. When he endorsed Hillary Clinton, he lost his audience.
Right.
People said, give me a break. He went down when he endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Mr. President,
have you talked to Governor Cuomo interviewing Fed candidates yet?
Yeah, we've started the interviewing process. Scott and I and Howard, a lot of people, JD, look, we have some great candidates. It's probably down to 3. He doesn't want the job. He said, do you like this job better?
Yes, sir.
I mean, he was a candidate, but I don't think he'll take it. I really don't think he'd take it, actually.
Are there any candidates from Wall Street, Mr. President?
Yeah, essentially we're all from Wall Street, aren't we? You know, when you get right down to it, the term Wall Street. Yeah, please.
Yep, you made your tax cuts permanent. You mentioned that the tariffs are bringing in a ton of external revenue. You've opened up markets, the EU, Japan, South Korea, many others.
Taking questions from reporters. President Trump there in the Oval taking questions from reporters. We have been listening in, as you've heard the president talking about a number of topics, including, importantly here, the potential for a summit, as it was put, between the United States, between Russia, between Ukraine, and work to try to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At this point, it doesn't sound like anything has been set, but you heard the president take a rather optimistic tone on that. I want to get to Monica Alba, our White House correspondent, who's been listening in. And Monica, we're going to have our team continue to listen in case he gets any more questions. You didn't get anything on the Jeffrey Epstein case just yet, which I know has been a target of reporting for many outlets throughout the course of the day. But he did talk fairly extensively about these conversations that one of his top envoys had with Vladimir Putin. And it sounded like maybe cautious optimism that something could come together on that, optimism that hasn't necessarily been reflected by his own Secretary of State just in the last couple hours.
Right. Secretary of State Rubio said, well, there's a lot that has to happen before we can talk about a potential meeting between President Trump and President Putin and potentially President Zelensky. But just now, President Trump said, quote, there was a good prospect that this could coalesce. Now, the question is when, how, and where. And those aren't insignificant details when you're talking about a major world summit with these specific leaders. And it sounds like President Putin was pretty open to meeting President Trump in person, and so is President Trump. But President Trump tried to relay the message that he was good with that if President Putin was also willing to meet with President Zelensky to discuss a potential ceasefire for the war in Ukraine. And simply that may be too high a bar to clear here. So that may be the impediment. It's unclear whether President Putin will agree to that and how long it might take to get him to yes on that. And the president kind of indicated that by saying he's been disappointed on this before, saying that maybe when there were prospects of other kinds of meetings or where there could be some peace talks or trying to get Russia and Ukraine to the table at the same time, only to see that fall apart. So the president is reserving there the space for this to crumble, but he's trying to indicate that he would like to see it happen. He did say they were still evaluating potential locations. We know that Turkey has been mentioned as a potential venue, with President Erdogan offering to broker those talks. We also know the Vatican and Pope Leo has offered to potentially be the venue or host for those kinds of discussions as well. So is it also a matter of the logistics that would be involved? As you know very well, Hallie, that may be an issue here, too.
I want to ask our control room here. It sounds like the president is getting several questions about, and so is the vice president, about Ghislaine Maxwell, about Jeffrey Epstein. Sounds like they're off that topic now, but just to bring people up to speed here, he was asked about Ghislaine Maxwell and said he did not know what she told Todd Blanche, that he essentially hasn't been briefed. And then importantly, Monica, the vice president, who you can't see him here, he's in the room too, he was asked by the members of the pool in the room, by one of the reporters, about this, about like a meeting tonight or a discussion involving some top administration officials, some of the president's right-hand men and women, that was supposedly in part, based on our reporting, set to discuss Jeffrey Epstein and releasing more of those case files. The vice president, Monica, in just the last couple of seconds, says that that is not happening, that meeting is not happening. I think obviously there are some questions around semantics on this front, but notable here that, again, you have the president for yet another day being pressed about the Epstein case overall.
That's right, Hallie. And a couple of things here on that potential meeting. We know that earlier in the day, we were told by several sources that this meeting was in the works. Is it possible that then when something like this becomes reported so widely, the location is talked about, it was going to take place at the vice president's Naval Observatory residence, then do things shift? Do they say we will do this another night? Do they say we will do this somewhere else? That is unclear, but we know that they are trying to put some distance between themselves and, in the words of one official, downplay the idea that this was a meeting to discuss Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, even though we know the administration has been weighing future steps on that issue and on that controversy. Hallie.
Monica Alba, plenty to cover there on your beat. Thank you, Mon. We'll check back again, I know, later on tonight. Appreciate that. As this is all happening in Washington, inside the White House, you've got, just down Pennsylvania Avenue, an empty building, basically, on Capitol Hill, because both the House and Senate are out for August recess. This happens usually every year, unless we're in shutdown mode. And this is when lawmakers go back home and they often hear from their constituents. And let me give you a taste, as Congresswoman Nancy Mace is set to have her own town hall tonight, of what some of her colleagues have been experiencing at town halls over the last week. Listen to this.
The Republican Party, now more than ever, represents the heart and soul of the working class.
How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
What I view is the moral hazard created by the Biden administration by allowing the U.S.-Mexico border to remain insecure.
I don't think you're the right fit for us anymore.
I will be out there working hard if you choose to run for any office.
Ooh, rowdy. Julie Sirkin is in South Carolina. She is outside where Congresswoman Mace's town hall is happening in Myrtle Beach. Julie, it feels like if you talk about buckets of things that people are concerned about, the economy, for example, Medicaid cuts, that is a big one here. Talk us through what you've heard and what you've seen in your coverage of these town halls and tonight.
Well, look, the town hall that I attended before this one, we are in a veterans-owned cafe, bar, and grill in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It is red here. They have elected a Republican president every year since, well, every cycle since 2000, I should say. And look, everybody here is supportive so far of Nancy Mace. She announced that she would be holding the mother of all town halls, kicking it off right here. This isn't in her district. This is actually the district of Congressman Russell Fry, also a Republican. She's actually going to gaggle reporters in a couple of minutes. But if I could just share with you some of the town halls we've been seeing. For example, I went to Senator Slotkin's town hall earlier this week in Michigan on Monday, I think it was, and that was a ticketed event. They had to RSVP in advance. There were mostly older folks in the crowd, but her message was geared toward young people, and I asked her about that. Take a listen.
We've done a lot of thinking and reflecting. That is slightly different than having an offensive plan. And part of the reason that I'm talking about this stuff publicly is because I want to put as much pressure as I can on all kinds of elected Democrats to get together and formulate that plan.
And now, Hallie, me telling you that Nancy Mace is running for governor and she's holding now this series of town halls is important because the last time she held a town hall was a private town hall back in the spring. People there wanted to hear from her as she planned to vote on that so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. I bet you here we're going to hear some questions about that, about the Epstein files, about other issues that she's been talking about, but we'll get that to you later.
Okay. Julie Sirkin in the Golf Whisper from inside that meeting. I will let you and everybody else there listen to what the Congresswoman has to say. Julie, thank you very much. We got a lot more coverage coming up right here. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more. So the NFL is banning something some of its players and teams have been using for a long time, which is why it's getting a lot of interest. We're talking about smelling salts. You know what this is? Like little packets. We see them here that can give you like a little burst of energy on the field, like that. Basically, the FDA warned about this last year, saying that they could potentially mask signs of concussions, that they may not be great for your health. And for San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle, he took the news rather interestingly. He says he takes them, smells these smelling salts before getting on the field every time the Niners get the ball, sharing this while crashing the set of an NFL Network interview late last night. Watch this.
I honestly just came up here to air a grievance. Oh. Our team got a memo today that smelling salts and ammonia packets were made illegal in the NFL. Wow. And I've been distraught all day.
I want to bring in Steve Patterson now. His tone is rather like jovial about it, right? But this is some serious stuff. The FDA has warned about this. It is obviously part of what seems like a broader culture shift inside the NFL that's been building for years as it relates to the seriousness of managing concussions.
Yeah, I think the NFL is most worried about that culture that could lead to these series of concussions that players have experienced, which leads to long-term damage. I want to be clear here, though. As far as we know, this doesn't actually ban smelling salts themselves. It bans the distribution, the supply from the team. So, like, player would get hit, run to the sideline, and somebody from the team would actually give him the little vial or little smelling salt so he could run back onto the field. What they don't want is if that player got his bell rung so bad that it was actually a concussion going back on the field and then getting hit repeatedly again and again and again. We spoke to Vin Gupta, a doctor, about this. Here's what he said about smelling salts and their possible effect. Listen to this.
A lot of athletes have convinced themselves that these ammonium salts do something to enhance performance. What they do is cause a temporary high. So they actually cause you to feel temporarily more alert, more sort of in the game. The concern, especially for an athlete like an NFL athlete that might be exposed to head injuries, is that these ammonium salts, when inhaled, could actually mask symptoms of, say, a concussion.
Well, want to be clear here, not physically, chemically addictive necessarily, but again, could mask those symptoms. And for a guy that is getting hit in the NFL, very, very serious, Hallie.
It's also kind of a thing in the manosphere. Like if you watch, some of this Joe Rogan stuff, like this is a thing, basically. Help us understand the broader sort of cultural piece of the smelling salts. I don't know if you want to call it a trend or whatever, but like it's a thing.
Well, the whole manosphere thing is about like sort of this warrior culture, right? It's about, there are some positives, like I think it leads to people wanting to maybe work out physically, be more active, but also part of that is to take shortcuts. And I think this is sort of the danger of that. I think in the long term, this could be a good thing because if you're talking about, concussion health, CTEs, this could filter all the way down to little leagues, where I think the NFL might be worried that people are taking them there. In the short term, though, I think the manosphere is just going to bring this up as a news article and talk about it more, and these products are everywhere. Hallie?
Okay, Steve Patterson laying down that prediction. We shall see. Steve, thank you very much. Good to see you, as always. And as always, thank you for watching. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. Tonight, the search for answers over why a soldier on a Georgia military base shot 5 of his co-workers. The new details coming into us about the suspect, an active duty sergeant who allegedly brought his own gun to the base, the soldiers who subdued him, and the live stream from the lockdown. You see it here. That's coming up next. Plus, an out-of-the-blue, potentially, president-to-president meeting could be on the books for next week. The new details we're just hearing from President Trump about a possible sit-down or summit with Russian leader Vladimir Putin and maybe others. Then, what's up with this supposed meeting at the vice president's home that appears set for later tonight? Would Jeffrey Epstein be on the agenda? The vice president threw cold water on that about 17 minutes ago. We've got the latest reporting in just a second. Plus, California's biggest wildfire of the year, sparking evacuation orders across that state. How first responders are working to get some of these fires under control. Plus, the American journalist we told you about last night, lost in the Norwegian wilderness for 4 days. Today, incredibly, found alive. We've got the amazing story of that rescue coming up a little bit later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with what we're just learning about the shooting that left 5 soldiers hurt at Fort Stewart Army Base in Georgia, with military officials saying that the alleged shooter, the suspected attacker, is in the Army himself. Listen.
The shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his co-workers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly.
That shooting sent the entire base into lockdown. You see it here with one soldier live streaming from the lockdown on TikTok. Look at this. You can see, obviously, people running, people trying to make their way past some of these buildings. Really dramatic stuff. I want you to listen to just a second of it here.
There's going to a lot of same ones barricading the building. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. I cannot confirm nor deny. I'm just telling you guys what I know, what's been told to me.
Here's what we know at this point now. As of about 6 o'clock Eastern tonight, the suspect is 28 years old, Cornelius Radford, a sergeant who's never been deployed in combat. He allegedly used his personal gun, his personal handgun in today's shooting. He'd been arrested for a DUI back in May. The Army has not released the names of the 5 victims just yet, but fortunately, they say they're all in stable condition. We've got this covered from the Pentagon with our Courtney QB, but I want to start with Priya Sridhar, who has made her way to Fort Stewart. She is on the ground there. Priya, bring us up to speed about what you're learning.
Hey, Hallie, that's right. So just to paint a picture a little bit about what Fort Stewart is like, this is a huge Army base. This is the largest military installation east of the Mississippi River. It serves about 60,000 people and spans 270,000 acres. So this hour that occurred earlier this morning was terrifying for so many people. This entire base was placed on a lockdown. Now, we know that law enforcement was dispatched to the scene at around 10:56. I want you guys to take a look at the timeline of exactly what unfolded today. We know that the military police were able to get to the suspect and get him into custody within essentially 40 minutes of when they were first dispatched. And the base was actually put on a lockdown 8 minutes after the military police on base were originally dispatched. And now we also know that the lockdown was lifted about an hour later, and just out of an abundance of caution, nearby schools were also placed on a soft lockdown. But we know now that, of course, the suspect, as you mentioned, is 28-year-old Sergeant Cornelius Radford. We don't know a whole lot about his motive just yet, only that the shooting took place in his place of work and that the 5 injured were some of his coworkers. We don't know their ranks just yet. We don't know if they were his superiors or if they were his subordinates. But one thing that the commanding general of the 3rd Infantry Division made very clear is that the soldiers who were on the scene and witnessed this all unfold helped prevent more casualties. Take a listen.
His soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldier, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
And the commanding general says that his chain of command, Sergeant Radford's, were not aware of any disciplinary issues in his 7.5 years of service. So they're still searching for a motive at this point. But as you mentioned, Army investigators have questioned him, Hallie.
Priya Shrithar live for us there, just outside, as you can see, Fort Stewart, Georgia. Priya, thank you. I want to bring in now our senior national security correspondent, Courtney Kuby, who is joining us now from the Pentagon. We reported this, Courtney, that officials say this suspect used his own gun, apparently. That is something you're not supposed to bring onto base, but there's no real checks for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely policies in place. You're not supposed to bring either your military or your personal weapons on board, on base. And if you do, for some reason, whether it's because you have a job that requires you to have a sidearm, there's specific rules that you have to follow with that. And if you're bringing your personal equipment on board, your personal weapons on board on the base, you have to either check them in an armory or there's other procedures. So that clearly didn't happen here. But Hallie, it also really exposes what is sort of a loophole in military bases. If you have access to it, you have a common access card, then it is possible to sneak weapons on board. Hallie, it's not the first time that we've seen an individual conduct an attack on a U.S. military installation either. And the question is exactly what was the motivation here? We heard a little bit about that from Priya. You know, one thing that we learned was just a little bit more about the soldier's background. He worked in a sustainment unit on this 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team. It's part of the 3rd Infantry Division there at Fort Stewart. That basically means that he worked in logistics in support for the unit. That seems to be what he's done throughout his entire Army career since he joined the active duty Army in January of 2018. As the general said today, there's no indications of any disciplinary issues or behavioral issues in his time at Fort Stewart, but they're still looking into that. I think that's going to be a big part of the investigation, is whether there is anything that comes to light as part of this. Now, remember, the general was also pretty candid about the fact that there was the sergeant had a DUI off base that he didn't report up to his chain of command. I suspect they'll be looking for other instances of potential problems that he may have faced that didn't make their way to his leadership, Hallie.
Courtney Kuby, live for us at the Pentagon, with more to follow on that tonight as well. Court, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Let's take you over to Washington, just down the street to the White House, because President Trump, not too long ago, says he feels an obligation to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, suggesting there may be a summit soon, suggesting perhaps some optimism of talks between himself, Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, and the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky.
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. I'm here to get the thing over with. It would have never started if I were president, and we're here to get it stopped and get the death stopped.
It's all coming as our teams internationally and here at home have reported that President Trump has told European allies, according to one source and according to a White House official, does plan to potentially meet with Vladimir Putin as soon as next week if Putin also agrees to sit down with Zelensky. It's after one of his top envoys, Steve Witkoff, met with Putin himself, a meeting that the president online called highly productive. He said that they made some good progress, essentially. I want to bring in our Keir Simmons, who's reporting on more of this now from London. What was interesting to me, Keir, listening to the president talk about this, was the way that the president sounded rather optimistic that there could be some very good progress made here to try to bring an end to this war just ahead of this self-imposed deadline Friday that he's put in place for a ceasefire. And yet his own Secretary of State did not sound nearly as optimistic when talking about this just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump, if you want to put it this way, Hallie, has sounded optimistic since the election, hasn't he? I mean, he's always said that he thought that he could get Russia and Ukraine to agree to a ceasefire. And what we've seen play out is the Trump administration putting enormous pressure on Ukrainian government, getting the Ukrainian government, President Zelensky, to the point where he's saying, OK, I agree to a ceasefire with some conditions. I'm ready for that. But he's got challenges with the Russian government, with the Kremlin. And it's that meeting today between his envoy, Steve Witkoff, and President Putin that lasted around 4 hours that appears now to have shifted President Trump back into a more positive stance. The rub is that the positivity seems to come from this idea presented by President Putin that he should meet with President Trump. And President Trump saying, OK, but we need that meeting to be also with President Zelensky, or in some way President Zelensky needs to be included. You, Mr. Putin, need to meet with President Zelensky in some way or other. And I think that's where things may fall down. We don't have a date. We don't have a time. We don't have a place.
And we don't have a pause to the fighting now, right, Keir? I mean, you are still seeing this Russian summer offensive in full force.
Yeah, we are. It's a bombardment on Ukraine of missiles and drones, I think, attempting on the Russian part to try to demoralize the Ukrainians into submission. Very unlikely to work. History tells us that bombing civilian populations, frankly, doesn't work in terms of getting them to capitulate in a war. So there's that. Now, the Russians are moving forward on the front line, but they are inching forward. So all of that suggests that things are going to take a long time unless President Trump can get this deal that he has promised for so long and that he still clearly believes is a possibility. But I think one of the issues here, Hallie, and I think President Trump's push for peace has really exposed this. One of the issues is just how far apart the Ukrainians and the Russians are in terms of what some kind of a ceasefire would look like, what either side would be prepared to agree to.
Keir Simmons, live for us in London with all of those developments late tonight. Keir, thank you. Also, in just the last few minutes, at that same essentially Q&A session with reporters, part of which we brought you live, you heard Vice President Vance jump in here. He was asked about reports he's holding a meeting tonight with other top Trump administration officials to talk about, in part, the Jeffrey Epstein case. I'm going to play this for you. Listen to what he said here. Listen specifically to what he said.
I saw it reported today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation.
That's after senior administration officials had suggested that the group does plan to discuss releasing a transcript from the Justice Department's 2 days of sit-downs with the woman you see here, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's convicted accomplice, his former girlfriend. The White House chief of staff, top DOJ officials apparently had been invited to attend that meeting. I want to show you a picture from outside the vice president's home, the residence there. That's it. That's a tight shot of the fence. Previously, we're told there had been a few demonstrators that had been gathering. We'll bring it back to that live shot if and when we see it, rather than the gate. Now, remember, Maxwell met with Todd Blanche, the number 2 at the DOJ, for some 9 hours a couple weeks ago. Of course, then a week later transferred to that minimum security prison camp in Texas, as opposed to the Tallahassee facility where she'd been held. That sparked some backlash from some of the most prominent Epstein accusers, some of whom now, including the family of Virginia Giuffre, saying that they want to be invited to any discussion, if it is happening tonight, about all of this. Let me bring in Monica Alba, who is live for us now, just outside the White House. Note, I think it's important to point out here, Monica, he said that the vice president said they are not meeting to talk about Epstein. He didn't say they're not meeting, period, right? Does that matter?
I think so, Hallie. In this case, that was my takeaway as well. They're not saying that there is no meeting taking place among some really key officials. When we're talking about the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, we're talking about the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who, of course, has played that key role, given the fact that he spent those 2 days talking to Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, a couple of weeks ago. And the idea here is that the administration is pushing back very publicly on the concept that they would be getting together together to discuss the Jeffrey Epstein matter in any sense. What they're saying is, okay, obviously we have conversations all the time. Could the Jeffrey Epstein situation be among the topics that are discussed when a group like that gets together? A couple of sources familiar with this meeting that was planned earlier in the day, in terms of the indication of it taking place tonight, said that that was the way that they would characterize it, that when this group gets together, they will talk about a lot of things, but it would be hard to imagine that there wouldn't be some discussion on the path forward on that exact issue you raised about the potential release of transcripts of those conversations between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. We know from a source familiar with those discussions that the administration is leaning towards transparency here, saying that they could potentially release that, but that invites a lot of other questions in terms of, would they release the whole thing? How much would be redacted? And we know that, of course, some of the victims and the victims' families have expressed concerns about private information, but they've also pushed for more to be made public overall in this case, too, Hallie.
It comes, Monica, as if we look at the accusers of both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell here, several of them have come forward now, including today, saying not only do they want to know more, they want to see more released, they want to be more involved in this process, essentially, that they want to be a part of any of these conversations that are happening around what you're talking about, the transcript, the files, release of more information, et cetera.
They're saying that the victim's perspective here is one that has not been included in the way that they would like for it to be when it comes to the government and what the government is considering here. They're pushing specifically, as you point out, for that release of files. And they're also saying that if Congress were to invite other people to talk about this, why wouldn't they want to invite some of the victims and some of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's abuse? Here's a little bit more from one of those who spoke out earlier today.
I believe, yes, the files should be released. I'm tired of the government saying that they want to release them. So please just do it.
So again, today when he was asked, President Trump tried to dismiss this entire conversation using an expletive, saying that he believes that people are trying to talk about this when he is saying that he would like to be talking about other things on his agenda. But we do know, Hallie, again, that the administration, the Department of Justice, the White House, they are still weighing what to do on this case, because we know it's the president's own supporters in some instances that have called for more information, in addition to Republican lawmakers who are pushing for that, too. Hallie.
Monica Alba, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Let's take you out west, where new evacuation orders are going into effect in California for what's become the state's biggest wildfire all year, with hundreds of other fires still burning across the country. Out at Santa Barbara, at least 4 people have been hurt because of the Gifford fire, now covering more than 83,000 acres and threatening hundreds of buildings. To put it in perspective, the Palisades fire earlier this year was far smaller, about 23,000 acres, but that fire was in a far more densely populated area. You had a ton of homes. That one was really close to central L.A., basically. Up north, you have some 750 fires taking over 2 provinces in Canada. And the smoke from those spot fires is part of what's making the air quality so bad in as many as 10 states tonight. Look at how hazy it's been in some of these spots out in the Midwest, out in the Northeast as well. The smoke is beginning to dissipate, but it has still been... Look, you see some of the fires burning here. It has still been really messy. I want to bring in Morgan Chesky, who's joining us now. And Morgan, you know, breathing this stuff in can be really dangerous, and it's happening as there is no sign that any of these fires are slowing down.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. And that's for a combination of reasons here. Number one, we have this high heat that's typical around this time of year, but it's really peaking this particular week. You combine that with low humidity, and that's not giving the firefighters any help at all. We have some new numbers in on the Gifford fire here, Hallie. That's the one just a few counties to the north of us here in Los Angeles, burning in 2 counties simultaneously. We're told it's 9% contained. You mentioned the acreage here, Hallie. Translating that into square miles, it's pretty stunning, 131 square miles. That is how much this fire that originally began from several fires that kind of culminated into one larger complex, that's what it's burned so far. 9% containment, better than what we saw yesterday. But firefighters have told me that it's really not until they hit that 30-40% that they start to feel more confident on having a firefight more under control, and that is still certainly a ways off. Complicating the fight with this Gifford fire, Hallie, is the fact that this is a rugged area, similar to some of the hills we've seen firefight-wise in the Palisades and the Altadena fire. crews only have one way to get back in there, and that is on foot. And that's why they're trying to cut fire lines as quickly as possible to slow down that spread. Closer to home here, that Rosa fire in Riverside County, that is not too far from where we are right now. I could hop in my car and drive there and be there before long. That's in a slightly more residential area. Of course, you know, following what happened in January, that certainly raises a lot of concerns. Right now, though, firefighters don't believe that that's immediately pressing any particular neighborhoods. They don't believe anyone's in any imminent danger right now. But to your point, Hallie, when you look at the sheer number of fires that are burning, not just across the U.S., but also up into Canada, if it's not the flames that are a concern, it certainly is the air quality. The city of Dallas acknowledging that its skies were hazy from a fire in a neighboring state. So depending upon where you live, even if you don't have a fire threat, you could certainly have an air quality threat that is certainly being felt by millions of people at this point in time here.
And Morgan, the heat also an issue, too. It's always hot in August, but when it gets this hot in some spots, especially in the Southwest, that makes it so much harder for the fire crews, too.
Mm-hmm. It does, yeah. Hallie, and particularly combined with the fact that these aren't happening in convenient places to reach. We have the fires here in California. We have another major complex in Utah as well, and several we're keeping an eye on in Washington, and particularly in the Southwest. When you have that heat spike, we saw firsthand in January, Hallie, the heat exhaustion from some of the firefighters that were out there highly exposed for hours on end. They know how to take care of themselves as best as possible, but sometimes conditions can prove to be too much.
Morgan Chesky, live for us in L.A. Morgan, thank you very much. Let's take you back home to Washington and really down to Texas, because that is where a lot of the action is tonight. You've got these Texas Democrats saying they are not backing down after they had to be evacuated from their hotel in Chicago this morning because of a bomb threat. Fortunately, everybody's fine. The situation is now all clear. But remember, dozens of those Democrats had left Texas in protest. They're trying to basically stop Republicans from having enough people in the state house to call a vote on a plan to redraw congressional maps and give the GOP more seats in Congress, like Congress in Washington, meaning this could affect the balance of power in Washington in the House for years to come. Now, because the Democrats aren't there, because they are in Chicago and other blue states, the vote cannot happen, at least not for now. So you've got a stall, you've got a stalemate, it's a pause, whatever you want to call it. But Republicans are not backing down either. They've even expanded their push to try to redraw maps in other states, like maybe Indiana. You've got Vice President Vance heading there to meet with the governor on this very thing. Ryan Nobles is live for us on Capitol Hill. And what's interesting, Ryan, we talk about these individual states, Texas, Indiana, California. If you don't live in any of those states, this still matters to you if you care about your representation in Congress on one side or the other, because this could affect what happens in the balance of power, right, which is very thin margins right now, for years to come.
In many different ways, too, Hallie. Not only is it going to make it more difficult for there to be any sort of sizable majority on either side, it's going to reduce the number of competitive races across the country, and that's going to send to Washington a different style of politician, a different style of Congress will come out of that as a result of it. What you see happening here in all these different states, and what could potentially be a domino effect that starts in Texas and moves to Florida, moves to Indiana, moves to California and New York, is this situation where these maps are drawn so that hard right Republicans and far left progressive Democrats are sent to Washington, and then they're asked to come up with deals to try and forge consensus on some of the most important issues of the day. And they won't be incentivized to do so because the districts that they represent don't represent people that are looking for compromise. And so as this process moves itself forward, even if you don't live in one of these states, there is the real possibility that this is going to impact all Americans for some time to come. And if we get into a process, another kind of issue that results, that could result as this process plays itself out, where they're constantly redistricting, the congressional map is going to be in a constant state of flux, and it's just going to make it difficult to govern.
And Ryan, you know, as we look ahead to this Vance meeting in Indiana tomorrow, is his goal to try to get the state's governor to commit to trying to redraw the maps? Do we know yet? Is this just another sort of way to keep the fires alive on this potential push?
I mean, it's definitely something that they're going to talk about, Hallie, but I do think that we have to kind of look at what's happening right now in the context specifically of Texas. And what you're seeing right now are Republicans and Democrats basically getting into their corners and saying, if you do this, then we're going to do this. So right now, it's our Republicans in Texas. Democrats want you to know that if you go ahead and change these districts to add 5 seats, then we're going to add seats in California and in New York. And so Republicans are answering by saying, well, if you do that, then we're going to go to Indiana or Missouri, and on and on and on. So that's how this process could just snowball if it continues. So we don't know the specifics of this, if Indiana even wants to do this, but it's more than anything Republicans sending a signal to Democrats, we're willing to take this as far as we want.
Ryan Noble's live for us on the Hill. Ryan, thank you. Let's talk about what's happening in, looking at my clock, less than 6 hours from now when this tariff deadline really goes into effect, which is why you've got manufacturers, retailers racing to load stuff onto ships and planes to get it here before the clock strikes midnight, right? Sweeping tariffs on more than 60 countries set to begin. I want to show you the map here. Some of the tariffs as high as 50% for goods coming in from some of these countries. It's a big deal. It matters. It could matter to your pocketbook, which we'll get to in a second. And it matters, of course, to big companies like Apple, which is making moves to try to avoid some of those tariff threats. You had the president appearing with the head of Apple, Tim Cook, in just the last hour to announce a $100 billion investment from the company aimed at boosting production from Apple here in the U.S. It all ties into what the president has cast, what the White House has framed as a big push to get more of the U.S. supply chain here in the U.S. The president also announcing today he's going to put a 100% tariff on all chips and semiconductors coming into the country with a caveat. Listen.
But if you've made a commitment to build, or if you're in the process of building, as many are, there is no tariff.
Christine Romans is joining us now with more. Here we go, 12:01. So like tonight, like technically Thursday morning, but really tonight, the numbers tick up. So from a consumer perspective, how concerned should we be? What should we be thinking about for the economy more macro? Walk us through it.
I mean, Tariff Palooza is here. It's been 6 months.
Is that what the economists are calling it now?
That's what, yeah, it is a technical term. No, Tariff Palooza is here. And we've been hearing for months, people might be at home saying, well, wait, I thought the tariffs were already on.
That's right. What happened to Liberation Day? April.
They've been threatened and paused and negotiated and threatened and paused and negotiated. This is now the time when these higher prices are going to start to come to bear. And until now, a lot of companies have been absorbing the higher costs as much as they can because the American consumer is exhausted by inflation, doesn't want to pay higher prices. So they've been absorbing as long as they can, but they're not expected to go on forever. And I think you're going to start to see things like bananas and olive oil and frozen, frozen salmon patties and things like this that are suddenly going to have a 20%, 15%, 30% price tag. And eventually that'll start working through to your grocery bill and to your own family budget.
At what point, if any, does this become a political liability potentially for President Trump?
I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons why you heard him musing on Friday. You've heard Josh Hallie has written some legislation about maybe having a check, another like a COVID-style check, but a tariff rebate check going back to consumers. I think that's a tacit acknowledgement that this could hit family budgets. But remember, the DOGE check, the DOGE savings check, that never materialized.
That's right.
So we'll see what happens next.
What is one thing that you feel like we're not talking about enough when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to tonight's deadline, and as we look ahead to the weeks to come?
I feel like it's the calm before the storm, really.
You feel like right now is the calm before the storm?
I feel like it's the calm before the storm. Well, I feel like a lot of these tariffs just simply haven't gone into effect. They've been threatened so much. You're now talking about the largest tariffs since the 1930s. Last year at this time, the effective tariff rate was a little over 2%. Now it's 18% and rising. I do think this is what I think is fascinating. The worst forecast didn't come to fruition, right? And the biggest sort of, claims from the president and his team also haven't come to fruition. All this money coming in and not having to pay income taxes anymore because there's so much money coming in from tariffs. So both extremes of the kind of the argument didn't materialize. But I do think as time goes on, it will be the consumer class that will have the biggest change in their daily life because of the new trade rules.
It does feel like the question is, what is that timing? If it's not back to school shopping season, is it holiday shopping season? Is it next spring? You know what I mean? Like, when does that actually begin to pinch people?
I mean, we thought that you'd start to first see signs of it at back to school, and that is happening. And that's why so many people have been doing back to school shopping early. But I think by the holidays, I talked to business owners who are stocking now for the holidays. They're stocking fewer things, different things. They're scrambling to find different items. So it's all anew. The president is rewriting the global trade rules. That will definitely be felt for sure.
Christine Romans, it's always great to see you. I love seeing you here in New York. Appreciate you, Christine. Thank you. Coming up, the high-risk rescue of Americans in Antarctica. Researchers trapped in freezing temperatures and perpetual darkness. We'll tell you how crews got them out. Plus, what was once a tween obsession facing debt of about $500 million. Could this be the end of Claire's? We've got some really incredible news tonight. Remember we told you about that American journalist last night who went missing, who's been missing for days while hiking in the Norwegian wilderness? He has been found. He is hurt, but he is alive. A spokesperson from the Norwegian Red Cross said they managed to medevac Alec Loon after he was spotted this morning. They say when the weather got better and the fact that they had so many people, so many rescuers out, those two things combined helped them find him. He is now in the hospital. He's being cared for. Remember, yesterday we told you what his sister had to tell our team when he was still missing. We followed up with her today after this good news. Here's what she told us.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We can all breathe. There were times where I just felt, how on earth could he be alive right now?
Just incredible. Somebody else breathing better, perhaps today, is our own Matt Bodner, who's actually a friend and colleague of Alec Loon. He joins us now. Matt, it is just exceptionally good news. Obviously, he is hurt, but he is alive. He has been found. He's in the hospital getting care. And this rescue, this was really an all-hands-on-deck push from the Norwegians here.
Yeah, I mean, Hallie, let me just start by saying what a relief it is to tell you he's okay. I've known him for many years now. We were both friends and colleagues back in Moscow before the war started. We actually both started our careers there. And it's just a relief. As for the rescue, I mean, an incredible effort. There was a lot of sort of online help, but the Norwegian Red Cross got it done in the end. They found Alec at around 11:34 local time today. That followed several days of searching that struggled seriously with bad weather. And this search involved helicopters, more than 60 volunteers. But the most important detail, he was found alive and conscious, sort of despite what I think a lot of people were thinking. There was this injury to his leg that prevented him from walking on. We're still, waiting to hear from Alec, to hear his account of what happened. But, he's an experienced outdoorsman. He's a smart guy, and he did exactly the right thing. He kept himself warm, he rationed his food, and he sat tight waiting for rescue. Now, you did mention that we spoke with Alec's sister, and she actually gave us this really amazing account of how they located him in the end. Basically, Alec's wife, Nika, she's also a good friend, she found a journal entry on his laptop that was filed on Thursday. Probably it synced from his phone, and it detailed his hiking plans and some people he'd met on the way up. Nika shared this with the police. Police took it all in, and this really meaningfully directed their search into a smaller area. We also asked his sister, what is the first thing she wants to say to Alec when she sees him again? You'll like this one. Take a listen.
I'm just going to tell him I love him. I'm really happy. And then maybe smack him on the shoulder or something for putting us all through this. What we need to make sure to tell him is that, no more solo hiking, and we're maybe going to surgically implant some sort of tracker in him after this experience.
Many of his friends definitely want to say similar things to him, but maybe more colorful wording.
It is, again, we are hoping to hear more from Alec in the days to come. Matt, I'm happy for, obviously, his family, for his friends like you. It's a nice change when we on the news get to be able to say good news as well. So, Matt, appreciate it. Thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, James Patterson is set to write a book on the murder of the United Healthcare CEO and the search for his alleged killer. He's teaming up with an investigative reporter for the project. They've already written a book on the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students. No title or release date yet. Number 2, a risky 20-hour rescue mission at an American research base in Antarctica. The New Zealand Air Force had to evacuate 3 people who needed medical help immediately. Crews had to face off against temperatures as low as 11 below zero, not to mention the total darkness right now of the Antarctic winter. A top New Zealand official says the mission went off flawlessly, but boy, those are some hard conditions there. We're still waiting on word as to how those 3 people rescued are doing. Number 3, take a look at this. Firefighters helping a 30-year-old woman stuck 3 foot deep in a chimney in Los Angeles. So she was like stuck in the chimney. Witnesses say she had been dancing on the roof of the building before this happened. Crews managed to get her out by pulling her. You see they're pulling her with ropes. She's expected to be just fine. Number 4, have you heard about Claire's popular tween icon? If you want like a little charm bracelet or some earrings or whatever for your 8th grade dance, they're filing for bankruptcy now for the second time in just 7 years, as Claire's faces like $500 million in debt. The CEO says there's more competition. There's a change in the way that people shop. Like people don't go to the mall as much anymore, and that's making it harder for them to stay profitable. Number 5, the Major League Baseball officials are naming the first ever woman umpire in the league's nearly 150-year history. You see her here, Jen Powell. She's going to work games for the first time this weekend between the Marlins and the Braves. The move from Major League Baseball comes nearly 30 years after the NBA hired a woman official and 10 years after the NFL did the same. Also tonight, you have got what you could call town hall turmoil, potentially at places all around the country. Because remember, back home in Washington, lawmakers are out for August recess. It means they're home facing constituents. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, you see her there, is doing that in South Carolina. And if her colleagues' experiences are any precedent, she may be in for an earful. Listen to how spicy things have gotten for some of these officials, some of these lawmakers over the last week.
The Republican Party, now more than ever, represents the heart and soul of the working class.
How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
What I view is the moral hazard created by the Biden administration by allowing the U.S.-Mexico border to remain insecure.
I don't think you're the right fit for us anymore.
I will be out there working hard if you choose to run for any office.
Julie Sirkin is at the Congresswoman's town hall. You're taking a live look there in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina tonight. Julie, it feels like if you talk about buckets of things that people are concerned about, the economy, for example, Medicaid cuts, that is a big one here. Talk us through what you've heard and what you've seen in your coverage of these town halls and tonight.
Well, look, the town hall that I attended before this one, we are in a veterans-owned cafe, bar, and grill in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It is red here. They have elected a Republican president every year since, well, every cycle since 2000, I should say. And look, everybody here is supportive so far of Nancy Mace. She announced that she would be holding the mother of all town halls, kicking it off right here. This isn't in her district. This is actually the district of Congressman Russell Fry, also a Republican. She's actually going to gaggle reporters in a couple of minutes. But if I could just share with you some of the town halls we've been seeing. For example, I went to Senator Slotkin's town hall earlier this week in Michigan on Monday, I think it was, and that was a ticketed event. They had to RSVP in advance. There were mostly older folks in the crowd, but her message was geared toward young people, and I asked her about that. Take a listen.
We've done a lot of thinking and reflecting. That is slightly different than having an offensive plan. And part of the reason that I'm talking about this stuff publicly is because I want to put as much pressure as I can on all kinds of elected Democrats to get together and formulate that plan.
And now, Hallie, me telling you that Nancy Mace is running for governor and she's holding now this series of town halls is important because the last time she held a town hall was a private town hall back in the spring. People there wanted to hear from her as she planned to vote on that so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. I bet you here we're going to hear some questions about that, about the Epstein files, about other issues that she's been talking about, but we'll get that to you later.
Okay. Julie Sirkin in the Golf Whisper from inside that meeting. I will let you and everybody else there listen to what the Congresswoman has to say. Julie, thank you very much. Coming up, what new 911 calls are telling us about the man behind that deadly shooting at a high-rise on Manhattan's Park Avenue. So police in Las Vegas today are releasing a bunch of documents and body camera videos detailing multiple contacts they had with the man suspected of shooting and killing 4 people and then himself in Midtown Manhattan last week. You're looking at some of those images here. Together, officials say this information, these videos, form a timeline, basically, showing a series of mental health crises, suicide threats, legal issues for years leading up to the shooting. Like this incident we're about to show you in 2023. When, according to police, he was arrested for trespassing at a casino in Vegas after refusing to provide his ID and then refusing to leave.
They
wanted you to show ID. Right. Very simple. Right. You didn't want to do it. Right. Okay, that means they're not giving you your money. So I'm under arrest. Okay.
What is your last name?
Hold on, sir.
No, you don't say hold on, sir. I'm going to ask you one more time to please leave, sir.
Call them.
Okay. Turn around.
I want to bring in our Rahima Ellis, who's joining us here in New York, covering all of this here. You know, one of the things that we've talked about after the shooting happened that was reported by us is that the claims by the gunman that CTE-related issues, football-related CTE, was part of his mental health crisis. And now we're just learning about some concerns his mom had as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's part of really a stunning collection of evidence that was released by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And it really does give a timeline of the years-long struggle that this young man was having with mental illness. You take a look at this, and back in September 12th of 2022, his mother calls 911 after Timur threatened suicide. September 27th, 2023, he's arrested for trespassing after refusing to leave the casino, as you pointed out. Then August 10th, 2024, a second 911 call from his mother over suicide threats. Her son was taken to the hospital on involuntarily mental health hold. May 30th, 2024, a citation for driving without a license and operating an unregistered car. Then July 18th, 2025, just a few days ago, he goes on a rampage in this New York, Manhattan high-rise, killing 4 people, and then he kills himself. His mother made a call, as we pointed out, just 1 year ago to 911, asking for some help for her son. Take a listen.
He said he's going to kill himself. I was just inside the apartment with him, and he just started crying and, like, slamming things and said I'm making him worse. He's under doctor's care for depression, concussion, like sports concussions, chronic migraines, and insomnia.
His mother made that call, too, in 2022. We should point out she was asking for help. She said that he was suffering from illness. She said it was concussions that he incurred as a result of playing high school football and that he had CTE. That was his claim. Whether or not it is true, it may take weeks or months before authorities can come to that conclusion because it requires an exhaustive examination of his brain.
All of this, of course, is the families of the victims in this shooting are living a nightmare. 4 people killed, including an NYPD police officer. We are now hearing for the first time from his family, right?
We absolutely are. And it's a grieving father talking about his only son through an interpreter, telling him how much he loved his family and he loved his country. Take a listen.
I'm very proud of my son, that he has given his life, sacrifice for America, for the country, his second home. I'm very proud of him. Even though he's from Bangladesh, this was considered his second home. So I'm very proud that he has sacrificed his life for his country.
The officer was a father of 2 sons, and his wife is due to give birth to their 3rd child next week.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. Rahima Ellis, thank you very much for those updates. A lot of new reporting coming in. Appreciate that. We've got a lot to get to here on the show as well, including an encounter you've got to see to believe coming up. To a very scary experience now for a few members of the Seattle Kraken. You probably know the Kraken, the relatively new NHL team. Some of them were out in Alaska filming some promo videos when they ran into a grizzly bear, or rather, a grizzly bear ran after them. The video is kind of nuts. Our friend Adrian Broaddus talked with one of the players who was there.
Did this wild grizzly bear meet its match in an NHL mascot? A scary encounter, thankfully ending in laughs after a charging bear backed down. It all happened out in Alaska's Katmai National Park, where the Seattle Kraken, a National Hockey League team, was out filming content with Bowie, the sea troll.
We had a pretty close call with a couple bears.
Player John Hayden was peacefully fly fishing when all of a sudden...
Got a bear.
I was not expecting that. We had been walking away from bears for the prior hour while fishing.
Hey, Sam, we got a bear. We got to move down.
Oh, my God.
During that moment, I definitely had a little bit fear.
I want to blame it on Bowie. They were pretty interested in his whole look.
In an edited video posted by the mascot, another angle shows the bear charging toward him.
That last little sprint, I was worried deeply.
The National Park Service says if you do encounter a bear, identify yourself to the bear. Let it know you're a human and not prey.
Announce your presence. Hey, bear. Hey, bear. Just like
Hey,
that.
bear.
Exactly.
Hey, bear.
Wildlife expert Ron McGill says the team did the right thing by staying calm.
They only really made one mistake. They turned their backs. You should never turn your back.
We were trying to get to the other side of the river. And then we also wanted us to stay behind the fishing guides who did an incredible job.
Luckily, the team says in its post, quote, no trolls or bears were hurt during this encounter, with a gentle reminder to always respect wildlife in their natural habitat.
Adrian Broaddus is joining us now. Okay, ha-ha, ended in laughter, thank goodness. Do not mess with grizzly bears. Like, they are intense. Like, anybody will tell you, of all the bears, like maybe besides polar, a grizzly is not one that you want to come charging at you, even if it is a bluff.
No, and you should always carry bear spray
Yes.
with you and travel in groups. That's one thing they did. But one key rule, Hallie, never fish within 50 yards of a bear. And if you see one approaching, you should cut the line immediately. Sources tell me John didn't cut the line. But some more good news. After the bear cleared, he did reel in a sockeye, which was 27.5 inches. So that was a big catch. He broke a record. Not only did he break that record, but thankfully they walked away unharmed.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. It is bananas to look at that video of the bear chasing the, whatever, mascot situation. So interesting. Seattle Kraken, glad they're okay. Adrian Broaddus, thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, a former security worker for the Miami Heat has been charged in a huge memorabilia heist. He's accused of stealing millions of dollars worth of jerseys worn in games and some other stuff, and then selling them. Like, for example, a LeBron James NBA Finals jersey he allegedly sold for $100 grand. Somebody else later auctioned it off for like $3 million plus. Apparently, the team had been holding on to the pieces for a future Miami Heat museum. The Heat denied our request for comment. Out of our Western Bureau, look at one of the world's most active volcanoes, awake once again. Kilauea erupting on Hawaii's Big Island. It's a dramatic-looking explosion, the 30th one this year from Kilauea. No homes are at risk. That's the good news on this situation. And staying out west, staying with Alaska, by the way, look at this dash cam video when a little plane overruns a runway and ends up crossing right there, crossing that busy street, few lanes of traffic there. An Alaska Air Transit plane broke through a fence. Fortunately, none of the 7 people on board was hurt. The NTSB is now looking into what went wrong. Coming up, more on why the NFL is banning something distributed by teams that players have used for decades. Next. So the NFL is banning something some of its players and teams have been using for a long time, which is why it's getting a lot of interest. We're talking about smelling salts. You know what this is? Like little packets, we see them here, that can give you like a little burst of energy on the field, like that, basically. The FDA warned about this last year, saying that they could potentially mask signs of concussions, that they may not be great for your health. And for San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle, he took the news rather interestingly. He says he takes them, smells these smelling salts before getting on the field every time the Niners get the ball, sharing this while crashing the set of an NFL Network interview late last night. Watch this.
I honestly just came up here to air a grievance. Oh. Our team got a memo today that smelling salts and ammonia packets were made illegal in the NFL. Wow. And I've been distraught all day.
I want to bring in Steve Patterson now. His tone is rather jovial about it, right? But this is some serious stuff. The FDA has warned about this. It is obviously part of what seems like a broader culture shift inside the NFL that's been building for years as it relates to the seriousness of managing concussions.
Yeah, I think the NFL is most worried about that culture that could lead to these series of concussions that players have experienced, which leads to long-term damage. I want to be clear here, though. As far as we know, this doesn't actually ban smelling salts themselves. It bans the distribution, the supply from the team. So, like, player would get hit, run to the sideline, and somebody from the team would actually give him the little vial or little smelling salt so he could run back onto the field. What they don't want is if that player got his bell rung so bad that it was actually a concussion going back on the field and then getting hit repeatedly again and again and again. We spoke to Vin Gupta, a doctor, about this. Here's what he said about smelling salts and their possible effect. Listen to this.
a lot of athletes have convinced themselves that these ammonium salts do something to enhance performance. What they do is cause a temporary high. So they actually cause you to feel temporarily more alert, more sort of in the game. The concern, especially for an athlete like an NFL athlete that might be exposed to head injuries, is that these ammonium salts, when inhaled, could actually mask symptoms of, say, a concussion.
Well, want to be clear here, not physically, chemically addictive necessarily, but again, could mask those symptoms. And for a guy that is getting hit in the NFL, very, very serious.
It's also kind of a thing in the manosphere. Like if you watch, you know, some of this Joe Rogan stuff, like this is a thing, basically. Help us understand the broader sort of cultural piece of the smelling salts. You know, I don't know if you want to call it a trend or whatever, but like it's a thing.
Well, the whole manosphere thing is about like sort of this warrior culture, right? It's about, there are some positives, like I think it leads to people wanting to maybe work out physically, be more active, but also part of that is to take shortcuts. And I think this is sort of the danger of that. I think in the long term, this could be a good thing because if you're talking about, you know, concussion health, CTEs, this could filter all the way down to little leagues, you know, where I think the NFL might be worried that people are taking them there. In the short term, though, I think the manosphere is just going to bring this up as a news article and talk about it more, and these products are everywhere. Hallie?
Okay, Steve Patterson laying down that prediction. We shall see. Steve, thank you very much. Good to see you, as always. And as always, thank you for watching. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.